Hello everyone. Today we're going to be looking at LookX, a great tool for architects and designers. You're going to be learning today how to use the latest tools and features in generating highly coherent renders and images. So you can go from a sketch, for example, or in this case, an image of an origami model and generate highly coherent and high resolution images. I made this great list with Neil Leach on the zine, listing out the 10 AI companies that architects and designers need to know. The very first one is, in fact, LookX. LookX was a tool that was founded in 2016 as Xcool by Wan Yuhei, and that then developed as LookX, based in Los Angeles. Okay, let's dive into the main platform. And before jumping in, these are just a few features that you can start exploring. So just describing how you can go from sketches to images with prompts as well. Some other great features is that this is actually one of the very few platforms which has democratized this this feature of training your own models. It's also a plugin available in SketchUp and Rhino, which we'll cover in other workshops. And you're able to go across different styles, so you're not only able to put in a reference Rhino model or sketch, you're also able to stylistically affect the result based on another input image. There are some other features we'll be diving into as well, such as upscaling. You can duplicate and copy other people's results, and there'll be some suggestions on how to use those prompt engineer these images through an iterative process. Okay, let's dive into the platform. The very top right, it says start looking LookX. Might be prompted before generating images to make an account. Now this is a payment service, so you will be prompted after the first 100 credits to start. I think now it's about $20 per month, so feel free to test it out and see if it works within your workflows, and then go for payment model if not. So the very first thing you see is other people's renders, their images, and these are simply from text to image, but also image to image. So in this case, you can see, close this survey, you can see that rendered, that generated image, that text prompt on the right, what model was used, and then some more information in the seed, and we'll cover those in a second. Okay, if we go right back, let's see if there's an example of an image to image process. You can kind of see this is kind of a particular type of image. In this case, you have that prompt right there, blue, purple, yellow, building facade, but there's also base image, and that's what we'll be learning how to do today. How could you take, for example, this abstract image or other abstract images or sketches or models, and then convert those with prompts to other images, more highly realistic, architectural, with a reference image or without. If you want to try this out, you're able to click on the top right and say generate the same. So that's a great starting place to just try the first prompts out, try that first generation. Okay, so where we want to be is in start creations. That's where all the generative AI actually happens. And there are two modes right here. The first is render mode on the left. And the second is explore mode, which gives you a few more details for more experienced users. I'll start with covering render mode, and then we'll jump into more detailed parameters. So looking first at the interface, on the right hand side you can start seeing some images that I've generated. You can actually then click on these after you generate them and go back after you've generated them and copy prompts or generate a new version or use those as reference images. Okay, let's learn how to create these prompts. So the very first thing, in this case, we're going to be doing an image to image process. So we're going to be selecting, okay, for what is the design field? We want to cover architectural scenes in this example and not interiors. And we're going to be using, in this case, you can use a rhino model, conceptual massing with lines. In this case, we're going to be using, for example, a hand sketch to then generate another image. You can also take a base image and then alter that in some ways. You can take a planimetric drawing, a site plan, and so on, and also generate and stylize these accordingly. Okay, let's look at hand sketch, and you can use other processes in the same way. Starting from the top, first is the render type, and you can see that when you click on precise, it will generate an image which looks closely to that input image that you put. Creative gives it a little more variety, so you can change that type of output. Okay, so the most important thing in this process is actually the prompt. Now, this is where the creative process really lies, in trying different prompts and exploring the different solutions that it generates. There's this very handy tool called labels. So we're able to select the view, which is always important to tell it, are we in a perspective view? Are we looking down on something? Is it an aerial view, a street view, a close-up shot? It gives it a bit of spatial awareness in that sense. So in this case, I'm going to do aerial view, residential building, super high rise, futuristic, minimal style, and I won't put a designer in this case, linear form, and glass curtain wall. You can keep going and adding different prompts, and you can customize and add different things here. So a landscaped street as well. Okay, so the base image, you can select clicking on upload. In this case, I have all these images to select from. In this case, I'm going to be using, let's use a sketch. This is one that I downloaded online. It is a sketch of a tower. It's an aerial view. So essentially what I want to do is go from that original sketch, add demo. I'm going to go from this sketch right here, slightly abstract, grayscaled, and I want to take those edges as much as possible and generate a coherent image after. So you can actually stylize that accordingly. So if you wanted to add a style, you could add a second image. In this case, we're going to, in more settings, generate 2 images with a seed, for example, for now of -1. Okay, so let's start running that. The seed specifically relates to what solution in the solution space. Remember, we're talking about AI, machine learning. This is within every seed will give you a different result. If you use the same seed, you'll get the same result. At -1, it guarantees that according to how many images you generate, you'll have different variety of outputs. And the number of creation, remember, relates to those free credits that you have on the top right. You start at 100, and at the end you can then go for the offers, and those, in this case, it's either 20 or so a month. Okay, here we have those outputs already. It takes very few seconds, and you can see if you click on this button right here, you can click to start compare, and you can see how well it's matching that original input. So it adds a bit of context. It responds to residential building. I added glass curtain wall and all those other details. So you can actually see the difference between the two here. If you wanted to export this image, I'd advise you, before exporting in this command right here, is to actually upscale this image, and you can use any of these upscalers, and I'd suggest you to use, for example, this one with restoring detail. Feel free to test different ones out. Obviously, each one then runs different credit amounts, and it takes about 20 seconds or so. So once you do export that image, you can then click on download it here or delete it or favorite it, and you can then, for example, see all of your favorites if you click on the top left button right there. Okay, so that's from a sketch. That's an input sketch, and I'll just give you another example of trying to generate from this origami model I was showing you earlier, which takes those outlines and generating, in this case, a balsa wood handmade model. So remember that prompt you put in will really start generating different outputs, whether it's a realistic image, an image of a massing model, you choose one material, multiple materials. It's a constant feedback loop that you have to test out. Okay, so do feel free to try the style reference image. You can stylize it, for example, if you want to make it more organic or curvy or whatnot, you can add those reference images there. Now, the very next step is looking at explore mode. This is for more advanced users. It gives you the possibility of selecting what type of machine learning models. These are pre-trained models that you can use. And at the top, you can select, for example, I want to make images more similar to this or more similar to this. And one of the great features is that you're also able within this platform right here is to train your own data set and then generate your own model and then use that yourself. So we've selected the model, and you can then add a second layer of detail with what's called LoRA. LoRA is another fine-tuned model. It adds a degree of control in what type of style you want to get at the end. It's like a second layer, and you can choose that type of model again according to these different themes. And the process then is the same, generating a prompt, and adding an input image, selecting how many images to generate, and then there are some more nuanced settings here. The more steps you do, I would suggest, for example, adding this to 30 or 40, the more detailed and the more the image diffusion process goes through. And this is a great sampling method. Feel free to test Euler, for example, out. So that covers at a high level what you can do. I do encourage you to go back to the start here and then try different types of inputs. The next video will be looking at bringing this within Rhino and exploring conceptual massings and then generating images from that. So at a high level, this is a great generative tool which can help you in the early concept stages of your projects. Always feel free to iterate and keep trying different results. I really look forward to seeing some of the outputs you generate. Bye, everyone.